I didn't grow up dreaming about Christmas mornings with matching pajamas and cinnamon rolls. In our house, holidays were deadlines, lists on the fridge, expectations pinned to my chest. By the time December rolled around, my parents' voices sharpened, my schedule filled, and my role, unpaid help, locked into place. I was the one who cleaned before guests arrived and cleaned again after they left. I was the one who prepped vegetables while my mother complained about how expensive groceries had gotten, and my father criticized the way I chopped onions. I was the one who remembered which cousin was allergic to nuts and which aunt hated cinnamon. If something went wrong, it was my fault. If everything went right, it was what families do. They never called me a maid. They didn't have to. The tone said it for them. By the time I was 26, I'd learned how to be invisible with a smile. I worked a full-time job, paid my own bills, and still drove across town every weekend because we need help. Help meant scrubbing baseboards, folding laundry that wasn't mine, and standing quietly while my parents entertained friends who praised the house and asked why I was still single, still renting, still not settled. Christmas was the worst. Every year, the same script. My mother would announce the menu like a military operation. My father would remind me, not joking, that if I wasn't going to bring a husband home, I could at least be useful. I'd arrive early Christmas Eve and leave late Christmas night, exhausted, smelling like dish soap and pine cleaner, my back aching from hours on my feet. Last year was supposed to be different. I had finally said no to a few things. I told them I couldn't come as early. I said I'd bring one dish instead of cooking half the meal. My mother laughed like I'd made a joke. My father stared at me until I changed the subject. Old habits die hard when you're trained to keep the peace. On December 23rd, my phone rang while I was still at work. "Make sure you come early tomorrow," my mother said, skipping any greeting. "The kitchen needs a deep clean, and don't forget to stop by the store. We'll send you the list." I looked at the computer screen in front of me, unread emails stacking up, and felt something snap. Not loudly, not dramatically, but cleanly, like a thread finally cut. "I'm not doing that," I said. There was a pause, then laughter. "Don't start," she replied. "It's Christmas." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm not doing it." My father's voice cut in, sharp and annoyed. "If you're going to act like this, maybe don't come at all." The old version of me would have apologized, would have backtracked, would have driven over anyway with groceries and guilt. Instead, I said, "Okay." I hung up before they could respond. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at my tiny kitchen. It wasn't fancy. The oven door squeaked. The counter space barely fit a cutting board. But it was mine. I made myself pasta, opened a cheap bottle of wine, and felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Peace. On Christmas Eve morning, my phone exploded. "Where are you? Did you forget? We're waiting. This is ridiculous. Your mother is stressed?" I didn't answer. I went to the grocery store, but not for them. I bought ingredients I actually liked. Fresh bread, cheese, a small roast. I cooked slowly, music playing, no one criticizing the way I held a knife. I cleaned as I went, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. By late afternoon, the messages turned nasty. "Your sister had to come help. Do you know how embarrassing this is? You're selfish. After everything we've done for you," I put my phone face down and ate dinner at my small table. Candle lit, snow tapping against the window. For the first time, Christmas Eve didn't feel like a test I was failing. Around 7 p.m., the call stopped. Later, I learned what happened. My sister, the golden child, showed up late and angry. She wasn't used to being asked to work. She didn't know where anything was. The kitchen, normally pristine because I made it that way, was cluttered and half-prepped. My parents argued. Dishes piled up. The roast burned because no one set a timer. The store-bought desserts were forgotten in the car until they melted. When relatives arrived, the house was quiet and tense. No warm smells, no calm host. Just my parents snapping at each other and explaining through tight smiles that things were running behind. An empty kitchen doesn't mean no food. It means no system. No invisible labor holding everything together. And for the first time, they felt it. I spent Christmas Day alone again, by choice. I took a long walk. I called a friend. I didn't rush. In the afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from my mother. "We didn't realize how much you did." It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing to recognition I'd ever gotten. I didn't rush to forgive. I didn't rush to explain. I replied hours later. I won't be treated like that anymore. This year, Christmas looks different. I visit for a few hours. I bring one dish. When my mother starts listing chores, I gently interrupt. When my father makes a comment, I leave early. The kitchen isn't mine anymore, and somehow, neither is the guilt. Walking away didn't leave them starving. It left them seeing, and that was the real gift. The shift didn't happen all at once. It never does. It happened in pauses, in moments where they expected me to step in, and I didn't. The first time was a Sunday dinner in January. I arrived on time, coat still on, and sat down. My mother hovered in the kitchen, clattering pots louder than necessary. The silence stretched, uncomfortable and pointed. "Well," she finally said. "Are you going to help, or—" I looked up from my phone. "You didn't ask me to." She blinked, genuinely thrown. For years, she hadn't needed to ask. I had been trained to anticipate, to fill gaps before they were noticed, to smooth things over before discomfort could bloom. She huffed and turned back to the stove. Dinner was late, slightly burned. No one said it out loud, but everyone noticed. My father watched me through the meal, like he was waiting for a punchline. When I stood up after eating and put only my own plate in the sink, his eyebrows rose. "You're done already?" "Yes," I said. And then I left. The drive home felt strange. My hands shook on the steering wheel. Not from fear, anticipation. Like my body was still bracing for punishment that never came. They didn't call that night. Or the next day. In February, my mother invited me over to talk. Those words used to mean an ambush, a list of grievances, a reminder of everything I owed. This time, she sat at the table, hands folded. "You've been distant," she said. "I've been busy," I replied. She nodded, lips pressed together. "We raised you better than this." There it was. The hook. "I don't agree," I said calmly. "You raised me to believe my value came from how useful I was to you. I'm unlearning that." My father scoffed. "So now helping your family is beneath you?" "No," I said. "Being treated like help is." The room went quiet. My sister stared at her plate. No one rushed in to soften the moment. I didn't explain further. I didn't defend myself. I stood up and said, "I have to go." And again, I left. Spring came, and with it, small changes. Invitations instead of demands. Questions instead of assumptions. Not always, not perfectly, but enough to notice. By summer, my mother had hired a cleaning service. She mentioned it casually, like it meant nothing. But I heard the edge beneath it, the adjustment, the cost. My father stopped making comments about usefulness. Instead, he asked about my job, my apartment, my plans. Awkwardly, like someone learning a new language late in life. Then Thanksgiving rolled around. I braced myself for the old script, the pressure, the expectations. Instead, my mother said, "Come if you want. We'll handle the rest." I brought a pie. I left early. No one complained. The kitchen was louder than I remembered, messier, real. And I realized something then, watching them move around each other without me filling the gaps. They hadn't lost a maid. They'd lost control. And I had gained something far more valuable than approval. I'd gained my time, my energy, my sense of self. This Christmas, I'll cook in my own kitchen again. Maybe I'll invite friends. Maybe I'll sit quietly with music and a candle and no expectations at all. What I know now is this: love that only shows up when you're useful isn't love, it's convenience. And once you stop providing the service, the truth finally has room to breathe. The real test came when something went wrong. It always does. In March, my mother slipped on the back steps and bruised her hip. Nothing broken, nothing dramatic, but enough to disrupt their routine. Enough to remind them how much they used to rely on me without ever saying the word rely. The call came in the evening. "We could really use your help this week," my father said. His voice was careful now, like he was stepping onto thin ice. "Just errands, a few meals." Old instincts surged up fast, the urge to drop everything, to prove I was still good, still worthy. I took a breath. "I can help a little," I said, "but I won't be staying over, and I won't be managing everything." Silence. Then a sigh. "Fine." When I showed up the next day, the house felt different. Not hostile, just exposed. Dust in corners I used to scrub. A sink full of dishes that would have once been done before anyone noticed. My mother sat at the table, stiff and quiet. I made soup. Enough for everyone. I cleaned up what I used. Nothing more. When my father gestured at the laundry room, I shook my head. "Not today." He frowned, then nodded. "Just once. Just barely. I left after 2 hours. That night, guilt tried to crawl back in. It always did, wearing familiar clothes. You could have done more. You should have stayed. They need you." But another voice, newer, steadier, answered back, "They need what you gave for free. That doesn't mean you owe it forever." Over the next few weeks, they adjusted. Neighbors helped. My sister showed up more, grumbling but present. Systems formed where I used to be, and something surprising happened. When I visited, my parents actually talked to me. Not instructions, not criticism, conversation. My mother asked how I liked my job now that I'd been there a year. My father told me a story from his childhood I'd never heard before. It wasn't warm and fuzzy. It was awkward, uneven, but it was real. One afternoon, as I was leaving, my mother said quietly, "You seem different." "I am," I said. She nodded. "Stronger." I didn't correct her. I didn't say freer, or finally seen by myself. She was doing the best she could with the language she had. The truth was, Walking away from that kitchen on Christmas Eve hadn't just changed them. It had changed me. I stopped volunteering for burnout, stopped apologizing for rest, stopped measuring my worth by how exhausted I was at the end of the day. I learned that boundaries don't punish people. They reveal them. Some step up, some step back, and some only show their love when it costs them nothing. I don't know what the future holds with my parents. Maybe we'll get closer. Maybe we won't. What I know is this: I will never again disappear so others can feel comfortable. The kitchen can be messy. The dinner can be late. The silence can be uncomfortable. But I won't be invisible anymore. And that's something I'll never give up again. What I didn't expect was how the change would echo outside my family. Once you stop being the default fixer in one place, you start noticing how often you play that role everywhere else. At work, I realized I was the one staying late, covering gaps, smoothing over other people's mistakes. Not because I was asked, but because I always had been. I started leaving on time, saying, "That's not my responsibility." The world didn't collapse. Projects still got done. Some people were annoyed. Others respected it instantly. Friendships shifted too. A few faded when I stopped being the emotional dumping ground. One friend accused me of changing. She wasn't wrong. I was changing into someone who didn't confuse loyalty with self-erasure. Then, in early December, my mother called again. "I'm trying to plan Christmas," she said carefully. No orders, no list. I wanted to ask what you're comfortable with. The question stunned me more than any apology ever could. "I'll come by in the afternoon," I said. "I'll stay a few hours. I'll bring something small." She agreed without pushing. When I arrived on Christmas Day, the house was imperfect. Wrapping paper everywhere. The kitchen cluttered. Food simpler than usual. My father burned the rolls and laughed it off instead of snapping at someone. No one handed me an apron. At one point, my mother reached for a sponge, paused, then looked at me, almost reflexively. I met her eyes and smiled, but didn't move. She nodded and kept going. It wasn't tense. It wasn't dramatic. It was just different. As I was leaving, my father walked me to the door. He hesitated, hand on the knob. "You know," he said, not quite meeting my eyes, "we didn't mean to take you for granted." I didn't rush to soften it. I didn't say it was okay. "I know," I replied. And then, after a beat, "But it still happened." He nodded once. That was it. Driving home, I thought about the empty kitchen from the year before. How terrifying it had felt to walk away. How convinced I'd been that love would disappear the moment I stopped earning it. But love that survives boundaries is real. And love that doesn't was never yours to carry alone. I spent that evening in my apartment again. Lights low, music playing. A quiet joy settling in. Not loud, not performative, but solid. I used to think being needed was the same as being loved. Now I know better. Being loved feels like this: room to breathe, freedom to leave, and a life that doesn't fall apart when you finally choose yourself. The truth settled in fully the following spring. Quiet, undeniable, irreversible. My parents invited me over for dinner again. Not a holiday, not an emergency, just dinner. I noticed something the moment I walked in. The kitchen was clean, not my kind of clean, not perfect, not polished for judgment, but functional, lived in, maintained. My mother cooked. My father set the table. My sister brought dessert. No one looked at me like they were waiting for instructions. No one handed me a task disguised as love. Halfway through the meal, my mother said something that would have once sent me straight to the sink. "We're thinking of hosting Easter," she said. Then she added carefully, "But only if it doesn't become too much." She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to herself. And that's when it hit me. They had finally learned how to stand without leaning on my spine. After dinner, as we sat in the quiet hum of a finished meal, my father cleared his throat. "You know," he said, "when you stopped coming, it wasn't the work we missed." I waited. "It was how easy we made it for ourselves by letting you carry everything." My mother nodded, eyes fixed on her hands. "We thought you'd always be there. We never asked if you wanted to be." The old version of me would have rushed to heal that moment, to say it was okay, to make them feel better. I didn't. Because this moment wasn't about their comfort. "It hurt," I said, calm, steady, final. "And I won't ever go back to that version of us." They didn't argue. They didn't minimize it. They accepted it. And that was the power shift. Not yelling, not revenge, not proving anything. Just refusal. Refusal to disappear. Refusal to earn belonging through exhaustion. Refusal to shrink so others could stay comfortable. That Christmas Eve, the one with the empty kitchen, didn't punish them. It liberated me. Because when I walked away, I didn't leave them without food. I left them without control. And in doing so, I finally fed myself something I'd been starving for my entire life. Respect. Now, when I show up, it's as a guest. When I help, it's by choice. When I leave, no one follows me with guilt in their hands. I am no longer the invisible labor holding the room together. I am seen. I am whole, and I am done being anyone's maid just to earn a seat at the table. They didn't lose a daughter that Christmas. They met one, for the first time. Years from now, people will ask why everything changed so suddenly. They'll assume there was a fight, a screaming match, a final explosive argument. There wasn't. The moment that rewrote my life was quiet. It was the moment I didn't show up. No apron. No grocery bags cutting into my hands. No body silently absorbing everyone else's comfort. Just absence. And absence did what obedience never could. It exposed the truth. They didn't miss me. They missed what I provided. And once I saw that clearly, something inside me closed forever. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in certainty. You don't negotiate your humanity with people who only value your usefulness. Today, my life is smaller in the ways that matter, and bigger in every way that counts. My home stays clean because I live there. My energy is spent where it's returned. My time belongs to me. When I sit at a table now, it's because I'm wanted, not because the work needs doing. And if I ever leave early, if I ever say no, if I ever choose myself again, nothing falls apart. That's how I know I'm finally free. Because love that collapses without your labor was never love. It was exploitation with better manners. I didn't burn bridges. I didn't seek revenge. I simply stopped sacrificing myself to keep everyone else warm. And that was the most powerful thing I've ever done.